Hi parents, this is Kim Gibbons and I am the middle school language arts teacher. Welcome back to all returning families, and I can't wait to meet all of you new families as well, and I'm just so excited that this new school year is about to begin. I'm going to quickly just kind of go over my course overview for middle school language arts, so I encourage you grab a pen and some paper and write down any questions that you may have. Maybe I say something and I'm not as clear as I think that I am or something, and so you just have some questions, and this would be a great time for you to jot those down. And then when you see me at the parent orientation, then you can ask me those questions, and hopefully I will have an answer for you. If not, we will find the person who does. And so that I just encourage you to do that. So here's my course overview. Everybody's going to get this actually as a handout, so you will have this in writing, so you do not have to feel like you need to take notes or to remember everything that I say, but it is a good idea just to kind of know what's going to be expected, again, especially if you're new. So my contact information will be at the top, and the best way to reach me is through text or email. This school year I will be homeschooling my first grader on Mondays and Wednesdays, and so I will be home on those days. On Tuesdays I'll be here at the school, and on Thursdays and Fridays I will be working. So probably best to reach me on a Wednesday or Tuesday evening with your text or your emails. And so it is my commitment to always respond to you within 24 to 48 hours. Okay, the materials needed for this course, if all of you go onto the school's website, there will be pictures and ISBN numbers for the curriculum that you need. I strongly encourage you to check that out prior to purchasing anything, because there are some different editions sometimes. And especially with the 7th, 8th grade, if you get the wrong edition, it has a different book in there for one of the books that we'll be reading. And so you're not going to want to get the wrong book. So make sure you're checking for those ISBN numbers, and make sure that everything is ordered and the students already have their books that first day of class. All right, besides that, every student's going to need a 3-ring binder. They don't have to have the really thick one like I use, but the real little ones aren't going to work either. So somewhere right in the middle would be great. And so the 3-ring binder we're going to be organizing on the first day of class. And so if they bring that and then just bring everything that they need to put in there, I'll be organizing it with them. We as a class will need to have it all done the same way. All right, they're going to need notebook paper. And I prefer non-college ruled and loose leaf. It cannot be torn out with like the fringe all on the side. They need 5 tabs. You can label them ahead of time if you would like. That'd be notebook paper is 1, lesson plans, literature, grammar, and writing. They need a 3-ring zippy bag. It's very important that the zippy bag be a 3-ring and that stays in their notebook, not a bag that stays in their backpack, because the backpacks aren't kept in the same room that I teach. And so we won't be able to have students run back and forth to where their backpacks are if they've forgotten things in there. So they need to make sure that they're doing that. They can, if it helps your student to have a homework folder, to have that separate and have all their homework that they're going to be turning in that folder. They can have that. That is not a requirement, but as an organizational skill, if that helps, then please do that. If not, they can just have it all in the very front of their binder, so that first thing of every class, we can always just take up homework. Okay, they also are going to need pencils. I suggest at least 2 with good erasers and one of those little sharpeners, just in case we don't have a sharpener in our class, or it's being used by another student and they need it, or it's a test or something like that. It's always good to have those sharpeners. Okay, I do have some great goals, I hope, this year for each student. And those 3 goals are, 1, to become critical thinkers and critical communicators. The second goal that I have is for the students to really hone their writing skills through proper grammar, strong vocabulary, and a little pizzazz. And thirdly, I would love for each student to really take in some life lessons through the literature that we read and the discussion that we have about it. So each year I usually have the same goals or very similar, but I do also pray, because I know each year is uniquely individual. And so again, I'm just super excited to have each and every one of your students and you partnering with me this school year. Okay, for grading, I do grade both middle school classes the same, and I use a category system where all assessments are worth 40%, all writing assignments and projects are worth 30%, all homework classwork is 20%, and then the notebook is 10%. And I do have a notebook rubric, which is like how I grade it, right here on here, so that the student and you know exactly what the notebook needs to look like to get 100% each time on those notebook checks. And when I say classwork, I include that with the homework because I want to make sure students understand that if they have an excused absence on a day where we do something in class, that work that we've done in class, they are still responsible to do. So it's not only the work on the home days, but also, again, in the case of an absence, they need to make sure that that work is done as well. All right, extra credit. The only extra credit that I offer in middle school language arts is the grammar test. I allow each student to correct all grammar tests. It doesn't matter what the grade is, and they make the corrections on the same grammar test, and then I average the two grades and only give them the one grade that's the improved grade. So that is how I handle extra credit. I do not allow extra credit projects or assignments. I feel like they have enough homework to do, and it never ceases to amaze me that they feel like the extra credit should be worth a whole lot, where the assignments, if they had just done them originally, should be worth little. And it really doesn't work out that way. And then they end up putting effort into this extra credit project when it doesn't do enough to really count for zeros on something else anyway. And so it just kind of gives, I think, a false expectation or false hope really to them, and a lot of work on their part that's really not needed. And so I personally am just not a fan of that. Okay, so how do you get that A in the class then, especially if that extra credit is not offered? Well, one, take advantage of that, of the extra credit grammar test and the fact that they can correct that, but also complete the homework on time and review it a little bit with them. Make sure that they're not just turning something in blindly, having not done any of it correctly. Also, have them ask questions quickly if they do not understand something. I try my best to be approachable for them to be able to ask me questions. I know some are a little bit more shy, but and I try to think of questions even to say, oh, some of you might be thinking of this or different things. But again, they can either ask me during class, they can always come to me during lunch, or they can text me questions. To complete the following expectations, which I'm going to go over in a minute: to be organized, to pray, and to manage your time well. So those are kind of my key points and how to get an A. And really that would be true with any class, but especially my class. Okay, then we have the absent late policy here. And I just want to kind of highlight, you can read through this, but I do want to highlight that it is a TRA policy that assignments that are turned in one school day late are points deducted. A student cannot receive full credit for work that's turned in late. So my class is on a Tuesday. And so if the student is here on a Tuesday but misses my class, they still would need to turn that work that was due. They still would need to turn it in on that Tuesday if they came at all on that day. If they didn't and they happen to come on a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, then or Monday, because I think all of them then come on that Monday, would need to turn it in then. But the absolute latest that they could turn it in would be the next Tuesday when they see me. Again, the later they turn in, the more deduction points taken off. However, if it goes past that week mark, then we do not accept the assignment. So it could just be that it was stuck in the car, or that they forgot, and we're very sorry about that, but we don't accept it at all for any work, for any credit, I mean, even if it was just because it was done but just not turned in. It really is helping them to learn how to be a responsible student, to take ownership of their work, of being more organized, and really trying to prepare them for high school that's to come. Oh, it's like, don't rush it, right? Okay. Also, it's very important that you know not all absences are excused absences. And so for vacation time or any time that you know you're going to be away, there's a form that you have to fill out from the office. And we have to know and approve that absence ahead of the absence in order for it to be excused. If you tell us after the fact, then it's an unexcused absence. When it comes to illness or emergency cases, we need to be called the morning of that class that they miss or earlier. So if you know that they have a fever, then Tuesday morning, you need to be calling the school and letting us know they won't be here today because they're running a temperature. We do prefer that you schedule doctor's appointments and things like that on a non-class day, but on a home day, because again, I have them 2 hours for the whole week and you have them all the rest. And so we do ask of that. But just remember those forms are crucial, because if it's an unexcused absence, then we do not accept the work for credit. The student receives zeros for the work that they should have turned in that day or work that was completed that day. That can become detrimental if we're having tests that day. And so make sure that you don't let that fall through the cracks. All right, tests. I have on here, I personally get all tests in class with me. I like to do this for 2 reasons, but the main reason why I like to do this is because I like students to be able to ask questions, and then I know what I can answer appropriately or not. And so I like for them to still not feel like, oh, it's a test, so I can't say anything. I like for them to be able to ask questions for clarity on tests. So if they are at an excused absence on a day that we are given a test, then they are going to have to schedule a time with me at lunch in order to take that test. What they cannot do is have a full extra week or something like that. Again, unless we've worked something out because of an illness, then absolutely. But if it's just because they had been absent, then they need to know that as soon as they get back, that they are required to take the test then. Okay. I do have kind of a week-by-week glance at all the lesson plans. It's very rare for this to change. However, hurricanes or anything like that always has the potential to change things. And so they're not 100% set in stone, but they're kind of 90 to 95% set in stone. So you can look through those. Okay, and then lastly, my expectations, and this really is the most important part, and something that's kind of unique to my class, that I'm going to go over what I expect from you as a parent, and then I'm going to actually have you agree to follow through with those expectations and sign that you agree to that, and the same with the student. And then, of course, I have what I feel is reasonable for you to expect from me. And again, please jot down anything if you feel like, well, you know what, I expect this, but you didn't really say you would do that. You know, you can ask me how I feel about that, or it could just be that I forgot something. So I feel you should expect from me to be prepared and on time for class, to be fair and respectful to all students, to respond to your messages or your students' messages within that 24 to 48 time period, to be available for conferences per appointment, to be friendly and approachable, to be knowledgeable in my subject matter, to grade work on a weekly basis and to post that on GradeLink, and to be devoted to my Heavenly Father, and to, you know, live worthy of the calling that He's called me to. So those are what are the things that I kind of expect you to expect from me. So parents, what do I expect from you? We do need to remember that this is a homeschool model, and although our kids are not in elementary school and they are working and moving towards independence and mastery in certain areas, at the middle school age level, they have not mastered things on their own. And so I do need parents to be committing that they are homeschooling. If they are only doing this as a form of just a 1 day a week type school, or a complete independent model, then I would ask that you really pray and reseek the direction that you're going. Because I do expect for you to look over and understand the lesson plans, for you to be actively involved in what they're learning. You do not have to teach the lessons, but I do want you to be able to be familiar with what they're learning and what we're covering, so you can hold them accountable to making sure that they're turning in work that's correct. I expect you to check the online grading system at least weekly. The main reason is for your own protection, because again, those zeros, you could think, well, I know they did the work. So, but if you check it beyond that week, then it's too late for them to be able to turn in. So it could have been as simple as, oh my goodness, it was just right here that you left on your dresser. And then it becomes a 0 when it could have easily not been. I also ask that you review grammar videos if your student struggles in grammar. And actually, and I pretty much put here, just remember that again, I have them 1 day a week for 2 hours. And for most students, that is just not long enough to fully grasp the grammar concepts. And so I'm going to this year commit to posting videos so that you do not have to feel you have to teach the lesson, that I'm kind of teaching the same thing I taught in class. I'm just teaching it again. And so it's something that they can watch, but I need you to hold them accountable to watch that and for you to watch it with them so that maybe you can remember something that you haven't done in many, many years, right? It's like with math, like if you haven't done it in a while, it's hard to remember exactly those things. And it's very similar with grammar. I also expect all parents to edit writing assignments before they are turned into me. This means even rough drafts. And so this year, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a policy that when a student turns something into me, if I can see that there are major spelling errors, major grammatical errors that I know that a parent could catch, or that the student clearly did not follow directions, like they wrote about something that I didn't ask them to write about or whatever, I'm not going to grade them at all. I'm going to put a note on them. This needs to be edited by a parent before they can turn it in and give it back to them. And then they, again, will have that 1 week period to turn it in late for any credit at all. And so it's really difficult with the time frame that we have if I look through everything and then have to give them back and then redo it, and we're like already on to new assignments. And so we just don't want to get backed up by me having to grade through things that that a homeschool parent should be able to easily knock through. And so those difficult things, absolutely, that, you know, and the content and all of that, I understand that I will be looking for. So don't worry if grammar is not your strong suit or if spelling is not your strong suit. But we do want to just hold you accountable that you are aware of what your kids are turning into me. All right, that you read the literature with your student if they're not strong readers. If they're strong readers, that you at least dialogue with them by asking them questions. Well, what was this chapter about? And what was there a new character, or was there a change in what one of them did, or just things to keep them actively involved with comprehending what they read. Again, helping them study for tests is my last one. So I already touched on that one. And so then I just have a place for you to sign. For students, it's a lot less of a list here, but it's that they will follow the lesson plans and complete their homework on time, that they'll be polite or respectful, that they'll work with integrity, that they won't copy from an answer key or work with another student, that they'll ask questions, that they'll take notes, and that they'll be on time and prepared for class. That means having their homework, having their pencils, not asking if they can run out to get their backpack all the time. I mean, it happens sometimes, but I expect them to be prepared. And I had added taking notes this year. It's going to be really important that you know the best way we communicate is through those lesson plans. And so if you notice that your students' lesson plans, as you're looking to see what it is that they need to do for the week, if you're seeing that they're never writing on them, you need to be asking them why, because I will explain certain assignments and I will write those explanations on the board, and then they need to take ownership and write down those notes on their lesson plan. I don't like it on a separate sheet of paper because those papers can get lost. So if they leave it right on the lesson plan, then it's easy to find and it makes sense because it's right next to the assignment. And so you're like, oh, those notes go with this assignment, and it just is more clear. And so I do expect students to take ownership of learning and to take notes in the class. If they have a particular challenge with that, then we can discuss that. But I do require all students to take notes. All right. And that's it. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your summer and can't wait to see you when we get back.